Hello everyone. Today we are going to discuss the anatomy of the pancreas in this video. Myself Dr. Ankit Khandelwal, MBBS and MS in Anatomy, and this is my YouTube channel Anatomy Explained. Don't forget to subscribe to the channel. In this channel we try to discuss all the concepts of human anatomy. Today the topic of discussion is the pancreas. So let us discuss everything about the anatomy of the pancreas. Pancreas is a mixed sort of gland, 98% of which is exocrine, which is for the secretion of the digestive enzymes, and 2% of which is the endocrine part, particularly secretion of the hormones like the insulin, glucagon, somatostatin. That is only 2%. Endocrine part is taken up by the islet of Langerhans, that we'll see in the histology slide. So it is a mixed gland. Where it is located, anatomically it is located in the abdominal cavity, where in the abdominal cavity it is located retroperitoneally. So it is a retroperitoneal organ, but it is not retroperitoneal from the very beginning. During the process of development it shifts back to the posterior side, so it becomes secondary retroperitoneal. Now how to understand primary and secondary retroperitoneal, we have already done a video on the peritoneum. The link will be there in the description box below. So it is a retroperitoneal, secondary retroperitoneal. Length is around 12 to 15 centimeter in adults, lying retroperitoneally, so secondary. So what does secondary means? That as it is secondary, so it will be lying over the primary retroperitoneal organs. So primary retroperitoneal organs will be behind the pancreas. In front of the pancreas you will have the peritoneum, and in front of that you will have the intraperitoneal organs. Okay, length is around 12 to 15 centimeter. Let us now see the parts of the pancreas. The parts, because it has been divided into few parts. So imagine if we try to make the pancreas like this. It is a tongue-shaped organ, retroperitoneal organ. Okay. On the right side of which, this is known as the head of the pancreas. This lower projecting part of the pancreas is known as the uncinate process of the pancreas. That is our head. This bigger part is known as the body of pancreas, and the tapering part to the left, that is known as the tail of pancreas. The part of the pancreas which is connecting the head with the body, that is known as the neck of pancreas. The width of the neck is roughly approximately around 2 centimeter in its width. So head, rounded head, lower projecting part, this is the uncinate process, roughly you can divide it like this, and then you have the body and the tail. These are the parts of pancreas. Now let us see the relations of pancreas. So let us move on to the other part, that is the relations. So as I already told you that it is a secondary retroperitoneal organ, so it is a retroperitoneal organ. So peritoneum is covering right in front of it. So let us see, first of all, start with the anterior relations. So what are the structures lying anteriorly right in front of the pancreas? So here if we try to make again the pancreas over here, right in front of the pancreas you have this attachment of the root of the transverse mesocolon, which goes right in front of the pancreas. So this is your root of the transverse mesocolon, which is going right in front of the pancreas. Okay, so this is a root. So the transverse mesocolon is attached onto the front of pancreas. Then it will actually go down and it will have the attachment of the transverse colon. What are the other body parts which are attached to it? Those are, you have the stomach above it. So over here you have the body of the stomach separated by the peritoneum, because the stomach is a retroperitoneal organ. Somewhat over here you have the antrum part of the stomach. Somewhat over here you have the pylorus part of the stomach. Over here you have the first part of duodenum that is attached in front of it, because first part duodenum is again intraperitoneal. All these are intraperitoneal organs. This is the attachment of the root of transverse mesocolon. Low down over here you will have some proximal part of the transverse colon which will be attached over here. Right somewhat around here, anterior to the pancreas, you will have the ileum, which will be related, loops of ileum, part of the small intestine. Somewhat over here you will have the loops of jejunum, because jejunum lies in the upper left part of the small intestine and ileum lies normally in the right part of the intestine. And the tail of the pancreas, that is actually related to the spleen. So this tail is actually in touch with the ligament that is going from the kidney to the spleen, kidney again being retroperitoneal, and this ligament over here means a double layered fold of peritoneum. That is our lino-renal ligament. So anterior relation of the pancreas are your peritoneum. All these organs which you have seen over here, they are all intraperitoneal organs. If I try to make over here the stomach part, let us try to make over here, then this would be, say, the lesser curvature, and that would be, say, the greater curvature which is going around over here. So that forms the body antrum, and that forms the pylorus part. This is your first part of duodenum. Then we have the second part duodenum, then we have the third part duodenum, then we have the fourth part of duodenum. So this is our D1 first part duodenum, D2 the descending or the third part duodenum, D3 the third part of duodenum, fourth part of duodenum, and here the starting of the jejunum. So here we have the jejunum relation. All these parts of duodenum, they are retroperitoneal except this initial first part of duodenum, where if we try to make, this would be our lesser omentum. So this part is intraperitoneal. So therefore it is lying in front of the pancreas. All this D2, D3 and D4, they are at the level of the pancreas, because these are again your secondary retroperitoneal as the pancreas. So they are at the same level. So this is the anterior relation. Anterior relation is the attachment of the root of the transverse mesocolon. So we have already done a session on the video on the peritoneal compartments. Above the attachment of the root of transverse mesocolon, we call this as the supracolic compartment. And below the attachment of the transverse mesocolon, we call it as the infracolic compartment. So pancreas lies both in supra and infracolic compartment. And this is your root of the transverse mesocolon, which is actually going through the second part of duodenum also. So second part duodenum also lying in supracolic and infracolic compartment. Okay, so these are your anterior relations, peritoneum and the intraperitoneal organs. Clear? Now let us move from here to the posterior relations. So now let us go to the posterior relations of the pancreas. First, the concepts. Concepts over here have already told us the pancreas is a secondary retroperitoneal organ, so it will be lying in front of primary retroperitoneal organs. Now, which organs are primary retroperitoneal? Those organs are kidneys, adrenals, the major vessels like your aorta and IVC, and the structures which are surrounding these major vessels. Plus, you can say the posterior part of diaphragm, like the crus of diaphragm. Those all are your primary retroperitoneal. They are forming basically the first layer. If you go from behind, if you open up the abdomen cavity from behind, you open up the posterior abdominal wall, then these are the things which you are going to see first: kidneys and the aorta, IVC. So let us try to make them. So supposedly, if we try to make over here the left kidney, okay, here will be the left kidney, and somewhat over here, somewhat lower down, you have your right kidney. Okay, these are primary retroperitoneal organs. Now if we draw about, say, the aorta will actually start somewhere around the T12 level, and then it will go down like this. Clear? This is your abdominal aorta. It starts at around T12. Again, we have done a session on the abdominal aorta and also on the celiac trunk. The links will be there. Just go through it. And on the right side of it, you have this huge long vessel, that is your IVC. So this is your inferior vena cava, and that is your aorta. Okay. Now from the abdominal aorta, there are few branches which you need to know. First of all, from here arises the celiac trunk. So this is your artery of the foregut, that is your celiac trunk. Clear? Somewhat at this level, you have the emergence of superior mesenteric artery, that is the artery of the midgut. Okay, the superior mesenteric artery and the celiac trunk coming from the aorta. Now if we try to make these are primary, whatever we drawn over here, all of these are primary retroperitoneal organs. Okay, now in front of it you will have the secondary retroperitoneal, that is your pancreas. Clear? So here, somewhat over here, we have this as the pancreas which is going around over here. This is lying in front of all this. If we make this dots over here, these dots are actually representing that the pancreas is lying in front of this. And if we try to make over here, then this is the location of the spleen. So the tail of pancreas is going to the spleen. The spleen being an intraperitoneal organ, so it is an anterior to these parts. Okay, so what is there in the posterior relations of the pancreas? Now let us see all these primary retroperitoneal organs. Plus over here we have seen that this was the location of the duodenum. So if you try to make the duodenum over here, then this would be the first part duodenum, then that would be the second part duodenum, that would be the third part, and that would be the fourth part, slightly at the same level. Now try to understand over here, if this is the duodenum part, then this would be the continuation, will be the stomach part, lesser curvature of the stomach. But here we are basically meant with the posterior relations. If you start with the parts of the pancreas, then you say you start with the head of pancreas. Head of pancreas over here. What is lying behind the head of pancreas? Now behind the head of pancreas, you have to imagine over here, try to think that this would be the lesser curvature, and this would be our lesser omentum. This would be the attachment of the lesser omentum, going from lesser curvature and the duodenum to the liver, all intraperitoneum. So in this right free margin of the lesser omentum, you have the portal tride structures, and here therefore you have this portal vein, and to the right of it you have what? You have the bile duct. These portal and bile duct, they will go behind the first part of duodenum, okay, and then this bile duct particularly, it will go behind the pancreas and it will try to come over here. So posterior relation of the head of pancreas is your common bile duct. Clear? Common bile duct. Now coming to the neck of pancreas. Neck of pancreas, if you remember, the neck of pancreas was this part between connecting the head and the body, and this was your uncinate process. Okay, we have seen the superior mesenteric artery over here that was coming from behind the pancreas. So this superior mesenteric artery was coming behind the pancreas. Okay, this superior mesenteric artery will be coming behind the pancreas, and then it will emerge from the inferior border of the pancreas right around the uncinate process. It may touch the uncinate process. It goes like this in front of the third part of duodenum. This is your superior mesenteric artery. So superior mesenteric artery lies behind the body of the pancreas, and then it goes below. It could lie in front of the uncinate process of pancreas. And to the right of it, what we have? To the right of it, we have the superior mesenteric vein over here. This is the superior mesenteric vein in front of the uncinate process. Then it will go behind over here. We have already done a video on the portal vein also. Okay, so this SMV will go behind the pancreas. So where is SMV? It is behind the pancreas. Now around the neck of pancreas, here is the splenic vein which is coming from the splenic hilum. This is your hilum of the spleen. From here the splenic vein is coming behind the pancreas. It is in touch with the posterior surface of the pancreas. Now the splenic vein is going in this direction. It will meet the superior mesenteric vein over here behind the pancreas, and they will form this portal vein again behind the pancreas. So where is the portal vein formed? Portal vein is formed behind the neck of pancreas. Then as you see, it will ascend behind the duodenum also, and then it will lie in the right free margin of the lesser omentum. So here was the portal vein. These are all lying where? These are all lying posteriorly to the pancreas. So CVD lying posteriorly, SMV, SMA, they are lying posteriorly. Formation of portal vein posteriorly, splenic vein posteriorly. What else posteriorly? Else things which we can already see: IVC posteriorly, aorta posteriorly. Kidneys, which kidney? Only the left kidney is lying posteriorly. Okay. Now if the left kidney and aorta IVC are over here, common sense that the left renal vessels, particularly this left renal artery as well as the left renal vein, they will be also lying there obviously posteriorly, because these are all the primary retroperitoneal organs. So the posterior relations of the pancreas are basically our primary retroperitoneal organs, and any structure which is related to it, like for example we saw the portal vein, the common bile duct, and the superior mesenteric vessels over here. Okay, so these are our basically the posterior relations of the pancreas, and obviously we haven't made over here, but yes, you have to understand that this level is around T12. So where the vertebrae is behind it, and here will be the crus of diaphragm. Here we will have the right and the left crus of diaphragm, which will also attached on the posterior aspect. So you have to understand these are all the posterior relations, and then you have a layer of peritoneum which is covering all of these from the front. So these were your anterior and posterior relations. Okay. Now moving from here, let us understand a little bit of the embryology, because from here we can understand a little bit of the pancreatic ducts. So embryologically, pancreas is coming from the gut. So pancreas development is endoderm. Point number 1. Which part of the gut? Mainly from the foregut. Or you can say the junction of foregut and the midgut. So actually there are two diverticulas over here. So imagine this is a tube, that is a foregut tube. The lower part of the foregut tube will be having two diverticulas. Anteriorly we will have the ventral pancreatic bud, and posteriorly bigger one we have the dorsal pancreatic bud. These are diverticulas coming from the foregut part. Now there is in the foregut, there is a 90-degree rotation embryologically to the right side. So this ventral pancreatic bud, it will go behind the duodenum. This part of the foregut is duodenum, and it will attach finally just below the dorsal pancreatic bud. So if we make this with this color, and then it goes behind over here, then finally the ventral pancreatic bud falls over here, and these two buds they try to fuse. And meanwhile the buds are growing. These buds are growing mainly into an exocrine gland. Remember 98% is exocrine, Exocrine means it has ducts, it has secretory cells, and it has ducts inside it. So meanwhile the ventral is rotating, they are fusing, the bud is also growing. As the bud is growing, the ducts are growing. So what now happens after the ventral pancreatic bud goes below the dorsal and fuses is we have a ventral pancreatic bud over here, and we have a slightly bigger dorsal pancreatic bud over here, and they fuse. So this is the duct of the dorsal pancreatic bud. This is the duct of dorsal pancreatic bud. Remember, DPB. And this blue color will be the duct of the ventral pancreatic bud. Now as these two buds fused, then obviously their ducts will also have a cross communication. Finally what happens that as these all have cross communicated, finally this duct of the ventral pancreatic bud, communicating duct, and this part of the dorsal pancreatic duct, they will all form one major duct, and that is your main pancreatic duct, also known as the duct of Wirsung. And this small part over here, if we take this color like this, that will form that was the main, so it will be a minor or a smaller or accessory pancreatic duct, also known as duct of Santorini. Now these are your ducts, exocrine ducts. So they will be having a lumen, it's a whole ductal structure. Their secretion are opening in the gut part. Which part of the gut? What was the gut which was lying over here? Here we had the second part of duodenum. The location over here was second part of duodenum. So these open up in the second part of duodenum. This main pancreatic duct, as we can see, that is carrying the majority of the secretions. So they open up into the duodenum, that is known as your main duodenal or primary duodenal or major duodenal papillae. That forms a swelling which is known as ampulla of Vater. Where does it open? It opens somewhat into the middle part of the second part of duodenum, D2. Where in the duodenum? Mainly into the posterior medial aspect of the duodenum. Why? Because everything rotated behind. So as they rotated behind, then their openings, they came close to over here. Okay. And remember what was the relation of the structure behind the pancreas? Another duct was coming from above, and that was your common bile duct. So that was your common bile duct. So common bile duct goes very close to this duct of Wirsung. Though they open nearly at the same ampulla, but they are actually separate from each other. They are fused, not fused, but they are aligned to each other, adjacent to each other, and they open as a common in this major duodenal papilla, make a swelling known as ampulla of Vater. Here is a sphincter that is known as sphincter of Oddi. Sphincter. Why the sphincter needed? Because when the duodenum is doing peristalsis, the secretions and all, they don't go back again through this duct. So you need a little bit of a sphincter complex over here. That is known as sphincter of Oddi. So that is your major duodenal papillae over here. Combination of the bile from CBD and the duct of Wirsung, the main duct. Now this is your accessory or the Santorini duct opening. That is known as the minor duodenal papillae. Its opening is around said to be 2 cm proximal to the opening of the major pancreatic duct or the major duodenal papillae. So minor duodenal papillae is 2 cm approximately proximal to the opening of the major one. That is a normal thing. But so we have to relate embryologically at how these ducts are formed. Now here comes the ductal anomalies. There are very much that is also quite common, the anomalies of the duct. Try to see it and try to correlate it with what sense will it make. So we are trying to make few pancreases over here. Let us try to make few pancreases over here, 12 to 15 centimeter around structure. Let us try to make the ducts like this, a normal main pancreatic duct. It is going like this. Okay, this is the main pancreatic duct, and here you have the minor pancreatic duct or duct of Santorini, and they actually sort of communicate with each other. This is the normal thing. When you have a slightly thicker over here, slightly thicker duct of Wirsung, okay, slightly thicker duct of Wirsung and slightly thinner duct of Santorini. So this is your Wirsung over here, and that is your Santorini over here. They are communicating with each other. Now as these ducts are formed, what is the flow? Where are they opening? This is the opening. So obviously the flow of the secretion is in this direction from the tail to the head. So minor ductules, they are actually on all its way, they are opening inside the duct around 90 degree. That sort of pattern is known as herringbone pattern. That sort of pattern is known as herringbone pattern. Point number one. Okay, this is a normal pattern. Second, over here is the same thing, and the duct actually it also increases in size as you go more towards the head part. As you go more towards the head, the size of the duct will actually increase. The second normal thing over here is that you have the ducts of Varsang and Santorini, but there is no communication with each other. Here you can see the small communication, here there is no communication. Again, this is a normal scenario. This is normal scenario. It also said that the size of the lumen of the duct is around 3 millimeter of the Varsang around the head, around 2 millimeter is the lumen diameter around the body, and around 1 millimeter the diameter of the lumen around the tail. Diameter of the lumen. It is slowly increasing. Now here comes few anomalies. What happens in these anomalies is that first of all, one anomaly could be when the Santorini is totally absent. So there is only one duct which is going on like this, that is duct of Varsang, and the Santorini is totally absent. So that is a anomaly. All the time, just remember that always there was CBD which was actually going behind and it was opening along with this. So CBD which is coming from the liver and the extrahepatic biliary apparatus. So there was the CBD which was all the time going. So this is one anomaly. These are two normal variations. These both are normal variations. One abnormal variation is when the Santorini is totally absent. Another abnormal variation is very common. It is seen in around 5 to 10% of individuals. Now that is a huge number. What is that anomaly? That anomaly is known as the pancreatic divisum. Pancreatic divisum. Now what is this pancreatic divisum? As we have seen just before over here, that there are two pancreatic buds over here, that is the ventral and the dorsal. The ventral goes behind and then they go align and they fuse. Now if they don't fuse, if they remain separate, that is known as the pancreas is divided. That is your pancreatic divisum. Now what will happen in this divisum? As they have not fused, then this cross communication will not develop. This communication of the ducts will develop only when the total bud has fused or bud has not fused. So what will happen now? The scenario changes, that the main duct becomes the superior. This one becomes the main duct because this whole bud is separate. So this one becomes the main one, and this lower one, which is the derivative coming from the ventral pancreatic bud, this one becomes a smaller one. Till here no problem, but the problem comes over here. There was anomaly where anomaly was there in the pancreatic fusion, but the duodenum remained the same. So in the duodenum case, this opening remained minor papillae, a small hole, and this hole remained as a major duodenum, as a bigger hole. But the reverse is happening. Through the minor hole, the lot of secretions are coming, but this is actually not capable of taking out those much of secretions. So what will happen? Most of the time, the pancreatic secretions will not be totally drained into the duodenum. That pancreatic divisum, present in 5 to 10% of individuals, is one of the reasons for the recurrent pancreatitis. Because the secretion of the pancreas are not totally drained up. Okay, so these are a few normal scenarios. These are the few abnormal scenarios. The duct related to the embryology of the pancreas. Okay. So that was pancreatic divisum and the recurrent pancreatitis. Now as we talked about the pancreatitis, now this is one of the main reasons why we are dealing with the anatomy of the pancreas. That is the clinical complication pancreatitis, which could be fatal also, pancreatitis. Now we are not here to discuss the clinical picture of the pancreatitis, but over here what we are going to do is, as we are discussing the anatomy of the pancreas, we can think of that how will the patient or how will the clinical symptoms and signs of the patient be represented, considering in mind the anatomy of the pancreas. So first of all, where would the pain be? If the pancreas is getting inflamed, where would the pain be? As it is coming from the foregut, the referred pain from the foregut goes to the epigastric region. The pain would go to epigastric region. Point number 1. Pain goes to epigastric region. But as it is a retroperitoneal organ, so that inflammation around the pancreas, that inflammation may reach the retroperitoneal spaces obviously, and then it may involve the posterior abdominal wall, so that is just lying around the kidney. And when the posterior abdominal wall is involved, the wall is supplied by somatic nerves. Now the pain is localized. Here it was a referred pain. Here the pain was referred. Now it is localized pain. Where? In the back. Where in the back? Around the T12 spine or L1 spine. around the back. So pain of pancreatitis will also go to the back, will also go into the front epigastric region. Point number 1. Second point related to anatomy part. First was the pain part. Second point, an organ lying in front of the pancreas, as we saw the anti-relations, was the body of the stomach, the antrum of the stomach. So the inflammation of the pancreas can also slightly influence the stomach, leading to vomiting or the gastric stasis of the content of the inside the stomach. That could happen because the gastric stasis is common. If you remember, what was the other posterior relations of the pancreas? We had the aorta. Around the aorta, we had that origin of the superior mesenteric artery coming out. Remember, when we talk of the aorta and its branches, it is also covered by the venous nerve plexuses. So there could be involvement of the superior mesenteric plexus of the nerves that is supplying the whole gut part, mainly the mid-gut part. And if there is involvement of the superior mesenteric plexus, it could lead to paralytic ileus. Means paralytic ileus when there's like no movement of the, there's no peristalsis happening. Paralytic ileus, new involvement of the superior mesenteric plexus. What else could be anatomically related over here is when supposedly there is with the aorta and the superior mesenteric artery, there are other lot of vessels like portal vein. You have the portal vein, you have the superior mesenteric, both of these vessels. You have the splenic vein lying behind. You have the renal vessels lying. All these are the structures which are lying behind the pancreas. So when there is inflammation or a hemorrhage or the things are complicating in pancreas, they could all lead to the thrombosis of the vessels. Any of these vessels. Remember how difficult the situation could be. It is just around the anatomical relations. Then other thing comes regarding the pancreatitis only. Supposedly the pancreatitis got more complicated and there is hemorrhage and there is the blood and the inflamed material is oozing out from the pancreas. So where will that fluid or that oozing or that blood or hemorrhagic part will dislodge in the body? As it is lying in the retroperitoneum, then those hemorrhagic part can go to the flanks. And there could be slight bruising around the flanks. That is known as your Gray-Turner sign. That is known as the Gray-Turner sign around the flanks. Clear? That hemorrhagic part, apart from going to the flanks, that may also go down into the region of the groin, that is around the inguinal ligament. Hemorrhagic by bruising. The bruising of the inguinal ligament, we call it as a sort of Fox sign. That bruising can also go to the, you remember in front of the pancreas we had the laceromentum also, lesser sac, laceromentum to the liver bare area. From laceromentum, falciform ligament opening into the umbilicus. So you understand the root. So that hemorrhage and all that could go around the umbilicus. There is known as a Cullen sign. All these are the signs which you may elicit in the patient. So just understanding the anatomical relationship of the pancreas. What are the important structures? You can go with the pain. Why there is paralytic ileus? Why there is thrombosis? Why there is vomiting? Why the bruising is happening in different areas? Why the pain is going back? Everything could be understood by understanding the relation of the pancreas. Okay, so that was a little bit of pancreatitis also. Okay, now coming to the vascular supply of the pancreas, that is also very interesting. Coming to the vascular supply, in the vascular supply we start with the arterial supply. Remember, pancreas as it just at the junction of the foregut and the midgut, therefore it is supplied by arteries of the foregut, that is the celiac trunk, and artery of the midgut, that is superior mesenteric artery, and there obviously the branches. So now if we try to make up the pancreas over here again, let us make a bigger pancreas over here, the retroperitoneal organ. This was the location of what? This was the location of the celiac trunk, which was right coming over here. This was the location behind the pancreas, the origin of the superior mesenteric artery. Then it will go down over here and then it will come right in front of it, in front of the incident process. And here if you remember, then this was the location of the aorta that is going down. Okay, so these are the main two vessels that we are concerned with right now, the celiac trunk and the superior mesenteric artery. If you recall the branches of the celiac trunk, they were the left gastric artery, they were the splenic artery, a tortuous going towards the spleen. This was the hilum of the spleen and the spleen. Then there was this common hepatic artery. This common hepatic artery will give off the gastroduodenal artery. That gastroduodenal artery will actually go behind the first part of duodenum, and then it will also give off some branches over here. What are these branches? This is our gastroduodenal artery. The first branch which it gives off is actually a part of the superior, so they are superior PD artery. What is PD artery? Pancreaticoduodenal artery. First branch of the gastroduodenal artery is the posterior superior pancreaticoduodenal artery. This one over here. There's a dotted one going behind. Posterior but superior pancreaticoduodenal artery. And then as a GD artery goes, gastroduodenal artery goes more inferiorly, it will give up the anterior superior pancreaticoduodenal artery. A long abbreviation, but that is anterior superior pancreaticoduodenal artery. These both go in front as well as anterior and posterior to the head of pancreas. Same from here, the superior mesenteric artery, it will give up the inferior pancreaticoduodenal artery. So that is your, let us change somewhat color over here, inferior pancreaticoduodenal artery. But again, one anterior and one going behind posterior. So anterior and posterior, inferior, they are coming from the superior mesenteric artery. What are they going to do is that both the anterior branches, anterior 1 and anterior this, so they will make a anterior arcade over here, the vascular arcade, and same both the posterior branches will form a posterior arcade behind the head of pancreas. Point clear? Now from the splenic artery, there are various branches which will go below and they will supply the body and tail of the pancreas. The various branches. The initial part of the splenic artery will give off an important branch that is known as the dorsal pancreatic artery. This dorsal pancreatic artery will give off a right branch and will give off a left branch over here. The right and left branch. This left branch, it goes slightly to the close to the inferior border of the pancreas, and therefore it is also known as inferior pancreatic artery, or also known as the transverse, because it is running transversely, transverse pancreatic artery. There is a left branch of dorsal pancreatic artery. This right branch of the dorsal pancreatic artery will go over here and then it will try to anastomose over here. It forms an arcade over here. Which forms arcade? The right branch of the dorsal pancreatic artery, and this arcade formed by the right branch is known as KIC, Kick's arcade. Remember this name. Now, as the splenic artery is traveling more to the left side towards the splenic hilum, it will give up various branches over here, but one of the major branches is known as arteria pancreatica magna, or the bigger artery, also known as the great pancreatic artery. Okay, one of the major branches going to supply the body and tail, and at the tail, close to the tail, it will also give up arteria cauda pancreatis, artery to the tail of the pancreas, and then it will go to the splenic hilum and then the subsequent branches. This SMA over here, superior mesenteric artery over here, if you remember, it supplies the midgut. It will also give a few of the jejunal branches that may supply some part of pancreas. So this is the arterial supply of the pancreas. Very interesting. I repeat again, celiac trunk giving off the 3 branches. This is the left gastric going to the stomach, splenic artery, common hepatic giving off the gastroduodenal artery. Then it becomes the proper hepatic artery. We did a class on the celiac trunk only. We did a video on celiac trunk. You can check it out. All the branches are given over there. But here, gastroduodenal first of all gives the posterior superior pancreaticoduodenal artery. So this is the first branch of the gastroduodenal artery. Then it will give the anterior superior pancreaticoduodenal artery. Same from the SMA, the inferior pancreaticoduodenal, but anterior and posterior. Anterior ones will form their arcade, posterior one will form their arcade. And even between these anterior posterior, there is known as the middle arcade, so they are also anastomosing with each other. Then comes the splenic artery. Major branch is one of the dorsal pancreatic artery, close to the posterior surface. It will go off the right and left branch. The left branch becomes the inferior, and the right branch forms an arcade known as the Kick's arcade. And then you have the great and the arteria cauda pancreatis. These are the various arteries supplying the pancreas. With the pancreas, as the name always is, the duodenum. So always do remember, never ever forget that this whole, we can make this duodenum over here. We already made it. It is actually like this. So these arteries are also supplying the duodenum. These mainly these pancreaticoduodenal arteries, because pancreas lies in the concavity of this C-shaped duodenum. Both pancreas duodenum are secondary retroperitoneal, so they are normally at the more or less the same horizontal level. Okay. Now, as you have done the artery part, let us move to the venous drainage. How are the veins? How the veins are taken care of from this organ? So let us again make up this huge pancreas over here. As we have seen a few veins over here, that behind this, close to the posterior surface, we have this splenic vein, which is coming in this direction. It's coming in this direction from the splenic hilum. we had the superior mesenteric vein, just coming blood from the midgut part. It will go behind the neck of the pancreas, and over here behind the neck of the pancreas, splenic vein and superior mesenteric vein, they will both mix up and they will form this thickened portal vein. That will be actually behind, then it will go above and it will run in the right free margin of the lesser omentum. That is your portal vein. This is portal vein, and that was your superior mesenteric vein. This was your splenic vein. Also remember relation over here. Here comes another vein. I hope some of you would remember it from the hind gut. That is the inferior mesenteric vein, which goes again behind it, and it normally drains into the splenic vein or somewhere close to the junction of splenic and superior mesenteric vein. So the direction of blood is this over here. This is the common portal circulation, but here we are talking about the pancreatic veins. So obviously, as we can make it take a different color over here, from this body and tail, whatever is in the pancreas, they will actually try to drain themselves into the splenic vein. Common sense. The splenic vein is running over there. So splenic artery is supplying the vascular supply, and the splenic vein is taking away the blood. Now what were the arteries over here? The arteries over here were gastroduodenal artery and its branches, mainly the anterior superior pancreatic duodenal artery, so the same name of vein, and so here is the posterior superior pancreatic duodenal vein, and this is your anterior superior pancreatic duodenal vein, and here we had the anterior and posterior inferior pancreatic duodenal vein. Now where are they draining? That is the question. This inferior pancreatic duodenal vein, it directly drains into the SMV because the artery was coming from here, so the vein will obviously be drained into the same vein. Artery was just on the left side of it. Always do remember that relation also. Superior mesenteric artery is over the left of superior mesenteric vein, or you can say vein is to the right of superior mesenteric artery. Very important because they form the axis of the midgut loop. So if the arrangement is this and it is normal, if the arrangement is opposite, then there is some malrotation of the midgut, embryological problem, that is. So the inferior pancreatic duodenal vein will drain to superior mesenteric vein, fair enough. What about this anterior superior? Now it is close to this vein. It will drain to this vein, but it may drain directly to the SMV, or there is another set of vein over here, because from here you have the the right gastroepiploic vein is coming. Over here the right gastroepiploic vein is coming, and from here the right colic vein. Right colic artery, right colic vein. These both right gastroepiploic vein and right colic vein, they form what? They form what is known as the gastrocolic. Gastrocolic is gastroepiploic and right colic. Gastrocolic, common term. Gastrocolic trunk of Henle's. So the veins, they form a trunk. Gastrocolic trunk of Henle. This anterior superior pancreatic duodenal vein may drain into this Henle's trunk, which is actually going into SMV only. So out of these 4 pancreatic duodenal veins, 3 are going to SMV. Which one is left? The one which is left is over here, and that is your posterior superior pancreatic duodenal vein. Now this vein, this dotted vein would drain where? What is the nearest vein? That is the port. So it drains into the portal vein. The nearest vein is portal vein. So common sense. Portal vein was lying behind, this posterior vein is lying behind, so that drains into the portal vein. So this is your venous structure, venous drainage. Now what is the importance over here? All what we are seeing over here is part of portal circulation. Already there is a video that has been uploaded on the portocaval anastomosis. Do have a look. Beautiful video. Now this is the portal circulation which you are seeing. What was the posterior relation of the kidney? The posterior relation of the pancreas. We have the kidneys, we have the aorta, we have the IVC, we have the posterior abdominal wall. So behind the pancreas, there is a whole of posterior abdominal wall and its relevant veins. What we call them as the retroperitoneal veins. Retroperitoneal veins, and the scientist is Retzius. So just behind the pancreas you have a whole systemic vein. Therefore, this could be a site of anastomosis in cases of portal hypertension. The posterior part of pancreas may have a site of anastomosis. So that anastomosis could dilate in case of portal hypertension. Okay, so this is one of the site. Now what is the clinical importance of this site is when you are doing any surgeries or any intervention on the posterior abdominal wall. If you are not aware of this site, then there could be torrential bleeding over there and you are not aware. So it is better to have aware of this, that in cases of cirrhosis of the liver or there's any cases of portal hypertension, you can have the retroperitoneal anastomosis, portocaval anastomosis. One thing more, as we talk about the pancreatitis, Most common causes of pancreatitis frequently are two: gallstone and the alcohol consumption. And then we have the idiopathic, various other causes, drug use, viral cause, this and that, lot of more. But main two important causes are gallstone formation and alcohol consumption, main causes of pancreatitis. So this was the venous part, and there's a sort of portal anastomosis. After this, what we left is the last part, and that last part is your little bit of the histology. Very simple. 98% is exocrine. Exocrine means there is something which is being secreted, so it is acinized. The sort of glands over here are known as the compound acinar glands. These compound acinar glands are made up of cells which are actually pyramidal in shape, and they form a cluster which forms a spherical shape. All these pyramidal cells will secrete the enzyme that will be taken up by the smaller ducts, then to bigger ducts that we have seen. 90% of the gland is this. The remaining 2% of the gland is a cluster of cells known as islet of Langerhans. Total there are around 1 million, that is around 10 lakh islet of Langerhans in the pancreas. Out of which the maximum one are in the tail region. And if you remember, the tail was actually going in the close to the splenic hilum. Which ligament? Lino-renal ligament. So when the surgeon is going to take out the spleen, supposedly this is the pancreas, we can make again over here. Suppose this is the pancreas over here, and that, imagine this is the spleen over here. Now this double layered fold of peritoneum is known as your lino-renal ligament. Okay, this is your splenic tortuous artery running over the superior border of the pancreas. Going this over here. Now if your surgeon has to take out the splenectomy, you have to ligate the splenic artery. Just be cautious that you are not ligating and not taking this part of the tail of pancreas, because maximum number of islets are over here. That could seriously compromise the production of the hormones, basically our insulin glucagon. So there are around 1 million islet of Langerhans, and each islet of Langerhans has around 3000 cells. 50% of the cells are actually beta cells which secrete insulin. 30 to 40% are actually your alpha cells which secrete the glucagon, and so on and so forth. So the tail may go inside the lino-renal ligament or may remain outside. That is not compulsory, that will always go inside, but you have to keep that in mind. While ligating the splenic artery, don't ligate this whole ligament, so you remove the spleen part. So that is the histology. If you look at the histological picture, then here is the histological picture. Here what you are seeing is this acini over here. Here we can very clearly see all these acini. These acini are what? These are actually opening over here, and these are opening over here, which are your ducts over here. We enlarge it. These are the whole acini, and they pour out the secretion into the ducts. You have intercalated ducts over here in the middle, then you have interlobular and the intralobular ducts. So majority of the 98% of pancreas is this. Then somewhere you have this cluster of cells which are known as the islet of Langerhans. I told you there are around 1 million islet of Langerhans, and each islet of Langerhans has around approximately 3000 cells. Now this is the endocrine part, so it will be traversed by the capillaries, because it has no ducts. Its secretion, they go into the blood, capillaries. Okay, so this was in detail about the pancreas. I hope we have tried to touch each part of the pancreas over here. So yes, if you liked it, then don't forget to subscribe the channel, and you can also find me in Unacademy. So there's also one where you can find my live lectures in Unacademy. So go to unacademy.com. In that you can reach the NEET PG section, and then you can see a few lectures over there also. Okay, you can use this code if you want to subscribe to Unacademy, and don't forget to subscribe to this channel if you are liking the videos, and we'll coming up with more videos, particularly for other abdominal organs like spleen and all. That's all. Thank you for your time. Dr. Ankit Khandelwal, Anatomy Explained.